down for the one time. It's the family bloodline.
Hey, what's good, family? We are back with another. Actually, it's the first in the line of the Platinum Guest Series. So I'd like to welcome everybody to the Family Bloodline Platinum Guest Series. Look, I'm gonna tell y'all something real quick. This don't happen often. We've got an absolutely special guest with us tonight, and I will the distinct honor will go to eCaster Pro, also known as Manny Lugo, to introduce our guest. So Manny, take it away.
People, he is a multi-platinum Grammy-nominated producer, songwriter, mixer, with a super career, a super Spanish speaking too.
Really not.
Let me stay serious, man. Okay. Songwriter and mixer with a career spanning over 20 years, working with some of the biggest recording artists and producers of all time. Today, he has been part of 5 number 1 singles of various charts as a producer. You see, that's why I was reading and I was like, oh my God, that's a lot. We're going golden this year. Okay, it says songwriter and or mixer, also responsible for mixing Jill Scott's Billboard Hot 200 number 1 album, Woman. Keith Ross, while still currently working with top artists, is the proud founder of Circle Audio, a game-changing microphone company aimed at distributing the studio world with microphones that improve on legendary models at a fraction of the price. Welcome, Keith Ross.
Thank you very much. It's funny, my mom gives me the same intro when she introduces me to people.
Thank you. I could be your mommy.
I mean, it's a different world we're in now. So you
Mira, mami. Mira, ¿qué pasó, mami? Hey, órale.
Oh, my man. Thank
my
you.
friend, don't worry. You don't want me to call your mamacita. Don't worry.
That's crazy, man.
Oh my God. People, you already see that this show started a whole different way.
Right.
Thank you, Jay, for having me, and Keith, thank you for being here.
Oh, absolutely.
Thank you guys for having me. I love you guys. I was excited about doing this.
No, I was excited. You know, once Manny gave me a heads up about things being pressed forward, I was like, oh man, absolutely. We gotta put our foot on the pedal to this. I gotta ride with my man Keith. It had been a minute since we had last talked about anything. We caught up for a quick second. The last time I saw you was the first time I had met you in person out at NAMM a year and some change ago, as a matter of fact. So, and I was continuously like, man, I wonder what Keith's up to. And I would ask Manny every now and again, you talk to Keith? Like, man, call him. And I ain't finna mess with that, man. This dude is a Grammy nominated individual. What do I look like? Hey, it's just on the cool. Hey, Keith, what's happening? How you doing? I know you're working with some top-notch artists and everything.
If you do it with that voice, he'll consider it every time.
Yo, what did you think was gonna happen? You were gonna call me, get my voicemail, and like, if you are not Grammy nominated, please hang up. Like, what did you think was gonna happen?
No, man, I've met high-profile people before, and needless to say, they're different behind the camera than what they are in front. And so wanting to continue a conversation or interact with them has been very far few and in between. Fortunately, you are one of the few that's close that I'd rather like actually just continue to establish friendship with and converse with and just check your progress and in any way possible continue to help promote you. Cause like I told you before, man, I think you're just a great dude all around, man. So anything that we can do, We own it. We after it. We after it.
Appreciate it. Yeah, man. I'm always gonna be the same goofball. Yeah.
Yo, so since this is all about you, man,
Mhm.
I want you to share a little bit about your journey in this music industry. You know, how you started as a producer and mixing and songwriting.
Okay. So yeah, I mean it definitely was something that I started with nothing. The first piece of gear I ever bought, I saved up for a long time. It was first thing I ever bought was a Korg Triton Pro 76 keyboard, and I bought it used off of eBay from a guy named Dan. He and I were cool for a long time after that before we lost touch. But yeah, I mean, like that, like I started with nothing. I just wanted to work with anybody, and I just figured, you know, just be the guy who people like to work with, and you know, make it fun, make it the best possible product that it can be, and eventually that person was going to know someone who was further along than they were, and maybe I'll get to work with that person, and then that person would know someone further along, and I'll get to work with, you know, everybody along the way. And that's basically really kind of how my career happened. I mean, every single thing, you know, it was word of mouth. I had no representation, you know, and what's that?
It's a beautiful thing because the list goes on, you know, and to stay grounded after all this year, the way you are, it's a blessing, to be honest. It's a really, really blessing, man. So
Man,
kudos for that.
Man, I'm like the least industry guy. Like I just feel like, you know what? It's crazy after everything that, you know, I've been lucky enough to be a part of. It's like every project you got to prove yourself anyway. Unless you have the #1 record on the charts at any given time, you still got to prove yourself. And the crazy thing is, and this was a crazy stigma that I had to avoid, or not avoid, to get past, is that no matter what, everyone thinks that all you do is the last thing you did. So when I was working on hip hop, they're like, he's a hip hop producer, he's a hip hop mixer, he's, you know. And then I switched to, you know, I did something in the pop world. Oh, he's a pop guy. And then, oh, he's an R&B guy. And so it was crazy. Whatever I was working on at the time that people identified me with at that moment became what I was identified with across the board. And, you know, also there's not a lot of guys who are able to kind of, you know, for me, it was getting in where I fit in. You know, I just wanted to be a part of something great, you know, in whatever capacity I could. It wasn't like for ego purposes. I was trying to say, I'm a this, I'm a that. But, you know, like when you produce something and they see you for that, they're like, oh, he's a producer. He's not a mixer. He's not a songwriter. And then, you know, they see you, you know, you do something as a mixer and they're like, oh yeah, he's a mixer, but he's not a producer or a songwriter. Or he's a songwriter, but he's not a producer or a mixer, you know. And it's crazy. Like, you can do everything. It's not common, but you can do everything. You know, for me, all it cost me was like all my time.
Yeah. I mean, that's the sacrifice.
Right.
Pretty much. And you know, I mean, I was really lucky. I got opportunities to work with legends pretty early on. I mean, my first placement was Ashanti and Robin Thicke. And this was back when like the Declaration album came out, and Robin Thicke was huge. Seven Aurelius got me my first placement. I mean, he did like Thug's Mansion for Tupac. He did Gangsta Lovin' for Eve and Alicia Keys. He did every Ja Rule Ashanti hit, period. You know, and there's definitely things about that situation that I would call out now, to say the least. But you know what? I was grateful because it kind of jump started everything. And it was funny because like I thought I made it. Like I got one place. It was supposed to be a single, and then like political reasons, they last minute ended up changing stuff, and it ended up not being a single, even though a lot of people knew that record. But I was like, I fucking made it. Like, wait, can I curse?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh,
I don't know. I'm saying yes. Not my show.
Podcast, not a non-cursing podcast. You know what? I take that back. Jesus is watching me from a fuck yeah. You can cuss, man.
No. That's right above you. That's Jesus right above you. Yeah.
Got it.
Oh,
Yeah.
I'm watching you down there. Okay.
No, but yeah. So like, I thought I made it. I was in college at the time. I'm like, I'm done. I'm big ass producer now. Like, you know, forget it. Like, no one's touching me. And it was funny because I never told this story to anyone, but I remember the night that I found out about this record and the deal was done and we signed the contracts and everything. And I went out to a club on South Beach and I'm so stupid. I was like 18 years old. I wasn't even old enough to get in. And I went to go just walk into the club and the bouncer stops me like, hey, whoa. And I was like, what? And he's like, hey, yo, man, club's full. We ain't taking any more guests. And I was like, but do you know what I'm celebrating tonight?
You know who I am.
And I told him what it was, and he's like, oh, good. So you should have money to buy a table then.
I got $20 in my pocket.
Yeah. Oh my God. It was so funny. Like, it would have been embarrassing, but it was too funny to be embarrassing. And so instead, me and my boys, we just left and called it a night. We celebrated at a restaurant. I think we went actually. I think we only ended up going to Denny's after that, and we had a blast.
Hey, that's the best place.
But yeah, but anyway, so I say all that to say, as the years went on, I got really lucky. That kind of fell into the category of, maybe, this will lead me to working with somebody else who's further along. And it did. And so I the next placement I had after that was Leona Lewis, Can't Breathe. And so after that, I'm like, yo, we did it. Yeah. All right. Again. Now it's time. Now it's time to be the man. And and ultimately what I realized is it just doesn't work that way. Even today, like, I still, like, everybody knows, like, if someone hires me to do a mix for them and they're independent, it doesn't matter what they pay me, because my work represents who I like what I can do every time. And so, if they pay me $1 or $1 million, they're getting the $1 million product. Wow. And that's pretty much how I built my whole career. I was really lucky. After that, I did some stuff with Pitbull. Guy's an amazing guy. And then there was this record called Midnight that I was a part of, and that was then picked up by MTV for Menudo, because they put them back together. And that was how I met Jimmy Douglas, because when I was doing the mix on it, all the vocals were not recorded the greatest, and so they had like no bottom end. So they had me mix the beat, and they had Jimmy Douglas mix the vocals. And I remember walking into Hit Factory into Studio D, which is where he was mixing this stuff, and I'm like, holy shit, this is Jimmy Douglas. Like, I idolize this guy. Like, he mixed Cry Me a River for Justin Timberlake. I was like, yo. And so I walked in the room, and I'm like, in awe, just that I'm in the room with this guy who, like, I was just like, oh my God, like, I can't believe I'm sitting here with him. And I remember anything I could do to be helpful, I wanted to do. And there was, I was a little too helpful. And like, I started correcting him, like, with technical stuff, because he's not like a technical guy, like, in the sense of like the digital world. In the analog world, he's oh my God. But like, there were shortcuts to do things that was like, if you do this, it'll help you get there
faster. Yeah.
And at first he was like, thanks, Keith. And then by the end of it, he turns around, he's like, Keith, shut the fuck up. I mean, I don't know if he used the word "fuck" in there, but to me, it felt like "shut the fuck up."
Yeah.
I mean, he could have said "Keith, please," but it would have sounded like "shut the fuck up." So, but I remember the moment that he said that, and I was like, and this is before I knew Jimmy like that. Jimmy ended up being like my first mentor for mixing, and I mean, like, all the love and respect to Jimmy for that because he's incredible. But I felt like I just like blew the biggest opportunity in my life at that moment. I felt like I just like I did something really horrible, and I remember like an hour later, I finally like mustered up the whatever it was to go and apologize to him, and I was like, Jimmy, I just want to say I'm really sorry. I said I've idolized you for like the longest time. I said you're my favorite mixer, and I just like I'm sorry. I
overly excitement.
I said I just wanted to be of value in the room. I didn't want to just sit there and watch and make you feel like I was dead weight. And he's like, you know what, Keith? I respect that. He's like, okay, Keith, you're cool with me. And after that, like I was with him all the time. I mean, and Jimmy became like family. And this is like long before I was even part of the Timberland camp. And so it was kind of cool. Like, I learned from Jimmy. So it's funny. I always tell people, you don't know Jimmy Douglas until he's yelled at you. Which this is like this is like honestly, God. And if Jimmy Douglas is watching this, if you're watching this, I apologize, but I'm not really sorry, and I love you. But there was one of probably the single greatest learning experience of my mixing career happened with Jimmy Douglas, and this was like 2000. I want to say 2008, 2009, somewhere around there. And I just finished mixing this record that I had done with my previous production partner for this girl, Chanel. And I brought it over. I called Jimmy. I said, Jimmy, I did it. It's the greatest mix I've ever done. Got to come by the studio. I'm coming. I'm coming to the studio. And he's like, okay, Keith, I'm here. Come on down. I'd love to hear it. So I come and I put the record on, and it was kind of like, you know how like when you give someone a gift that is like a really good gift, and you're like, here.
Yeah.
And I gave it to him, and he puts it on, and he listens start to finish. I'm like, this is a good sign, and I'm just like,
yeah,
waiting. I'm just waiting, and at the end, I'm like, and he's not saying anything. I'm like, so what do you think? And he's like, Keith, what the fuck is this?
Oh shit!
And I was like, what do you mean? He's like, what did you do to her voice? I said, what are you talking about? He's like, do you hear a fucking hiss at the top of my voice when I talk? And I was like, no. He's like, then why'd you put a fucking hiss on the top of her vocals? He was trying to tell me they were too bright. And
man,
I was like, but you know what though? That moment was the moment that it all clicked for me. He was like, a piano should sound like a piano, a vocal should sound like a vocal. And I was like, and it's such a simple statement to make, but like when you say it in the context of tailoring a sound to something, all of a sudden it's like, hold on a second.
Yeah.
He's changed.
Let me go back and work on this again.
Yeah.
And that was, I would say, the turning point. Like, I give Jimmy so much credit because that really was the turning point for my career as a mix engineer, because until he told me that, I never really understood what my target was. And that was like, I mean, shit, if there's anyone watching that's trying to get into mixing or mixes records and feels like they need guidance, take that statement, because that statement right there changed my life. And I mean, I couldn't have been happier to get yelled at by anybody else.
Yeah.
And so anyway, so I did a bunch of stuff with Jimmy Douglas over the years, like learning from him and stuff like that. And fast forward, skipping a whole bunch of stuff. I ended up with Cash Money for a couple of years, and that was a really cool experience. And then towards the end of the second year, I started getting courted by Timbaland. And so he liked me because I could do everything, and he didn't have to call 5 people to do 5 jobs. He'd be like, "Keith, you do that," and that was how it went. And so it was really cool. I spent a couple of years with Tim. I was really lucky. I got to work with, everybody. I never thought I'd be in a room with Beyonce and Jay-Z and Justin Timberlake and Alicia Keys and T.I. and T-Pain and Ludacris and The Dream, and the Twista, freaking so many people. It was crazy.
All our 2000 great artists.
Yeah. Oh my God. And it was like, it was incredible. I definitely was not credited on everything that I was supposed to be credited on, like really anything I was supposed to be credited on during that time that mattered. But it was all good because who else was going to get those type of experience?
Yeah.
So,
So after so much experience, how do you handle collaboration with artists and musicians? Like, what do you think that or believe makes a successful collaboration?
Well, I think a successful collaboration comes from understanding that artist, and because I think a lot of producers lead with their ego sometimes, and so it's not about us. Our job and the part where we shine is when we understand the artist and what they want, and we help them shine. And it's kind of like, if you go to a producer mix, you're always going to have, the drums and the beat be louder than the vocals. And if you go to a mix that the artist sits on, their vocals are always going to be louder than everything else. And then you send it to a mixer who's totally objective, and and then it gets to be somewhere in the middle of that. And then you find that happy medium. And I feel like it's the same thing in a session. The producer's going to bring what they bring, but ultimately it's our job to take the artist and bring out the best in the artist. We guide the artist, absolutely, but we don't tell the artist who they are, because that's not really gonna connect. Like, people will hear the difference. So, I think that's the number one thing to successfully work with an artist, is to really not just listen to what they say, but hear them when they say it, and and from there, try to create something that's a part of both you and that artist. If you're in the studio working with them to create something, and if not, then, I'm sure, sending records, which is the old school way to do it. Sending records still, they ultimately end up getting tailored to the artist anyway, most of the time, because the artist has to connect with it.
How does that process looks like? Walk us through, like, your typical workflow, like from the idea to the final product.
So usually it starts with a phone call, and that's every bit as important as getting started on the music, because, like, it's really important to find out where that artist is, in terms of, like, their headspace, what they want to do musically, stylistically, because I like to get in that headspace before I meet the artist, before I have anything. Like, I want to be able to walk into that session or speak to that artist prepared to at least give them something close to what they're looking for.
Get the vibe,
off the bat. Yeah, gotta catch the vibe. It's good to try to catch that vibe before they even, like, put it on display. And then as far as the process goes, a lot of the time I like to work from scratch. I didn't used to. I used to like to just do records, but I guess it depends on the artist. Like, there are certain artists that I just love working with from scratch. And, like, I'm not the greatest musician in the world. I know what I want to hear, and I'm really good at putting together a record, which is really what a producer's job is. You know, we essentially are the general contractors of music, and so you know, so GC,
Good way to say it,
right? Yeah, I was thinking about that in the car on the way home, actually.
That's
And
good. I thought about it like that. I like that.
so you know, we have our guys that are our team, and you know, it's our job to oversee everything. Sometimes we'll get our hands dirty and dive in, but you know, ultimately I always try to stress how important it is that it's whatever's best for the record. There's nobody ever made money from ego. It just doesn't happen. You know, you can make money from your accomplishments, but ego always gets in the way. And so, you know, I have amazing musicians that I work with that I mean, I've been working with for forever. I've got my guy Corey Irvin. We work together all the time. That guy is one of the baddest dudes on keys ever. I mean, and he's so much more than that. I mean, like he's incredible. He's in there from start to finish with me most of the time when we work. I've got Camilo Valandia, who's like one of the best guitarists in the music industry. We've been friends for so many years. Phenomenal talent. I mean, I got so many great people I work with, and so they're every bit as important as me, you know, in that studio. It's just that I'm the GC basically, and so I know what needs to be done. I'm the one with the most experience, with the most, you know, like the most work knowledge of being in with those artists. But it doesn't make me better than anyone. It just means that I'm better equipped to handle certain situations. And so I think that's really important. Like people don't give enough credit to the people that they work with. I would not be shit without the people that I work with. You know, and I learn from them while we work. I mean, you know, still to this day. I mean, Corey and I have been working together for 15 years. And I still learn from him every time we get together. I mean, he's one of the most genius music guys I've ever had the privilege of knowing. And he's also like an incredibly close friend. But so anyway, so to make a long story short, or a long answer short, the process,
teamwork makes the dream work.
Teamwork makes the dream work, you know, and then ultimately we'll get in the studio. You know, we'll get something, you know, some sort of template done. I usually take it a little further than being a template a lot of the time, because when I get ideas, I just like to keep it rolling. But then, you know, we go in, you know, we lay down melodies, and like with no words, like all mumbles. So I have this singer songwriter that I've been working with for years now, and her name's Jamie Aaron. And she's amazing. I mean, like I literally, she spent 8 months living in my house, like the year we met, because I saw so much unbelievable potential in her, and I literally taught her how to write songs. Like, and she's so good now, bro. Like she's unbelievable. Like she's writing records that feel like hits. And she picked it up so fast. In like 6 months, I was like, yo, her whole thought process changed. She's incredible. So, but anyway, so we get the melodies done. And then we sit there, and really important, I like to work macro to micro, which is not necessarily the norm, but I feel like the hook is the most important part of the song. If you don't have a great hook, it's not worth writing the rest of the song, because nobody buys a song or listens to a song for the first verse, you know? So every record, to me, like for me at least, my process is hooks always come first, because that's what you're building the whole song around. And the benefit of that is that you get the hook done first, and then you do the parts. You kind of work backwards. So you do the parts. The way I work is basically the parts that are repeated the most in the song come first. Then the parts that are repeated the second most come second. And then the parts that happen one time, those parts come last. So it's usually hook, then pre-hook, then verses. And what that enables you to do is you know exactly how the part that you're writing is going to transition into that next part, and you know if it needs to be stronger. And so So that's definitely like one of my